Nowadays, whenever we have a blackout, or brownout as it is called here in the Philippines, the world seems to stop. That's because we have grown so accustomed to living our lives with electronic gadgets. Cell phones, iPods, microwaves, refrigerators, televisions, computers. The list goes on and on. During the earlier times, however, more like just a few years ago, a blackout is but a normal event, and sometimes we even enjoy it to an extent that it entails quiet bonding time with our families. I remember when I was a kid, I would secretly wish that a blackout would happen at least once a week, so that I can play one of my favorite pastimes with my siblings, the shadow game. We would spend hours beside candles, sometimes as much as 5 at a time, and make up countless varieties of shapes, animals, and whatnot with our shadows on the wall. As we all got older, however, and as electricity in Manila got more stable, the shadow game has since become just another topic to reminisce about whenever we had nothing to do, or while waiting for our cell phones to reach full battery status. One day, while having an after-school meeting, however, the shadow game was brought back, not only to my consciousness, but also to everyone I was with on that fateful day. It was a day that we will definitely remember for the rest of our lives. There were 4 of us, Trisha, Anne, Jason, and me. We were at Anne's condo, editing and trying to type in the final key pages of our very long thesis, which we should have been able to submit 3 days earlier. At the beginning, everyone was hyped and energized, focused on finishing our final requirement for college. Even Trisha, the sleepyhead, was all up and about. We started at around 6 p.m. and pledged that not until we finished our thesis could we have our much-needed rest. All was going well. Everyone was contributing, and it seemed like we were on our way to an early slumber. Since we were already using Anne's desktop computer, I didn't bother to charge my laptop, which was already out of lithium juice. After a short dinner at around 9 p.m., we were just a few pages short of finishing when it began. Suddenly, the lights went out. It was a blackout. "Damn! Why now? We're this close to getting sleep," said a clearly frustrated Jason while motioning with his hand. "Don't worry, it will only be for a while. We have backup generators here," replied a calm Anne. For the next 15 minutes, however, we remained shrouded in darkness, and that's when I did something I wished I hadn't. I asked Anne if we could light some candles. "Well, it seems the tech guys are having a bit of a problem. It wouldn't hurt to have some light here," said Trisha, who by then had already started yawning. So we searched the kitchen cabinets and found 3 black colored candles. "Hey Anne, why are all these candles black? It's too early for Halloween, you know," kidded Jason. "You know what? I actually don't know. I don't even remember where those came from. I didn't bring any candles with me when I moved in last month," said Anne. But everyone was already busy cleaning up the tons of papers and notes so that they wouldn't catch fire. So no one noticed Anne's mysterious remark. After a while, everyone settled around the floor, which was where we decided to light the candles. "These candles sure look weird and somewhat scary," commented Trisha, who was covered in a blanket. After a while, everybody was already feeling sleepy when I saw something move behind Jason. I brushed it off, blaming my tired and sleep-deprived eyes for the imagination. But after a few moments, I saw it again, this time much clearer. It seemed like there were another person beside Jason because there were two shadows on the wall. I blinked, trying to make sure I wasn't seeing things, but the shadow remained. Then I saw Anne looking at Jason too, seemingly unable to process what she was seeing. Jason, who was busy texting at the time, noticed our disbelieving looks and casually asked what was wrong with us. "Dude, I think something's beside you," I blurted out, my gaze transfixed on the two shadows on the wall. It was then that we saw Trisha motionlessly looking at me, and as she slowly said, "The devil is behind you." After Trisha's last word, the flame of the candle started swaying violently, as if a strong wind that we couldn't feel was blowing inside the room. Our shadows then began to move on their own, and all of us suddenly lost control of our bodies. With everybody in a state of shock, I started praying the Lord's Prayer, desperate to put a stop to what was happening. All of them eventually joined me, but the shadows continued to move violently on the wall, and a really strong wind started to blow inside the room, sending our thesis materials flying in a vortex. It was as if a small tornado was forming inside the room. In the midst of all the chaos and not knowing what to do, I shouted to my friends that we should try to move and hold hands. It was then we all heard an incredibly scary, low voice whisper, almost to our ears. "Burn!" It was then we realized that the strong wind was getting closer and closer to the candles, and with it all our papers and notes. Even with the feeling of hopelessness slowly consuming us, we were able to hold hands. We closed our eyes and prayed for deliverance from whatever demonic entity was trying to hurt us. We prayed out loud, hoping that whatever was in the room would leave us. And before the flames were able to touch the first piece of paper, and after we said the last line of the Hail Mary, the gushing wind stopped. Everything fell on the floor and the lights went on again. We opened our eyes and were shocked, to say the least, with what we saw. Everything was back to where they were before the blackout. Dumbfounded, we could only look at each other, speechless. None of us could fathom what had happened. When we looked at the floor where the candles had been, all we saw were 3 faded marks, but no candles. When we decided to go out of the condo unit to get some fresh air before we packed up and head home, we looked for the security guard to ask him what took the management so long to bring back the electricity. He just looked at us curiously and said, "What are you talking about? There was no blackout."